Hi, I'm Sean Hessinger, and this is Small Biz in 15, the show where we bring you small business success in 15 minutes or less. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. You've got a great small business story to tell, but how do you find just the right words? On today's show, David Leonhardt, president of THGM Writing Services, explains how hiring a copywriter may be a better idea than trying to go it alone. So, David, let's start with why would a small business hire a copywriter?
Well, every business at some time or another needs to get a message across, whether it's to customers, whether it's to potential partners, whether it's even just to the local business community. Your reputation is on the line every time you open your mouth, but just as much every time you hit the keyboard. A copywriter helps take whatever message you want to deliver to whatever audience it is, finds the right words to put you in the best light. Even more basically, it helps you communicate properly and get your message across. But at the same time, one of the reasons a lot of businesses will outsource is because they want someone who's not just going to get the message across, the de facto information, but also is going to get that broader message of this is who we are. We are a good company. We are a respectable company. We are leaders. We are whatever it is, that image that you want with the particular audience. And the copywriter is going to be able to work a little magic by finding the right words. Very similar to a photographer or graphic artist. Anybody can draw stick figures of three people interacting, but you're going to hire a professional when you want to portray your reputation in a certain professional way. Same thing with copywriting.
Some people may say, well, I know how to write. Do I have to hire a copywriter?
Everybody can write, everybody can draw, everybody can speak. But one of the interesting things is how many people come to us to help write speeches. And most interesting of all is the speeches that we write the most are wedding speeches, best man, father of the bride, mother of the bride, that kind of thing. And this is something personal. You know how to talk about your kid or about the groom if you're the best man or something like that. Who doesn't? And yet trying to find the right words because you know that it's an occasion. In business, every time you write something, it is an occasion. And maybe a note to, one of your staff might not be an occasion. But if you're sending it outside your company, you want to know that it's done right. And you need to, first of all, have the skill. And second of all, you alluded to it, you have to have the time. And not just the time, but also that mental space to be able to put everything else aside if you're going to do it right. So much the same way as why would you hire anybody? Why don't you just do it all yourself? Even if you could do it all yourself, you don't want to. There's things only you can do, or there's things that you can do best. So the copywriter is someone who does the writing best.
Can you just illuminate, maybe even from your own personal experience, things that people have hired copywriters to do?
Almost every business will sooner or later have letters to write, some marketing materials, whether those be pamphlets, advertisements, video scripts. Sometimes there's reports. Certainly if you're active, interacting with even municipal government or business improvement associations, when you have something that you want to get across, you have a position that's important for your company, or you have any outreach toward, again, like advertising or public relations. News releases is something actually that we get from time to time, trying to raise the company's profile, whether it's locally, whether it's for an event or a charity that it's supporting. These are all the kind of things that every business has to communicate, and sooner or later, even plumbers have to communicate beyond just the phone calls and text messages. So that's when you want to get a copywriter to jump in and share their expertise.
I think I need a copywriter. I have no idea where to find one. How do you go about doing that, even starting the process?
I mean, there's so many ways to find a copywriter, and it's not all that different than finding any other outsource. Search engines right away. You ask your business colleagues if you're involved in. Presumably, you have either your partner organizations, suppliers, even clients sometimes, but you're typically involved in some kind of a chamber of commerce or business improvement organization, or perhaps some industry chat online. So there's a lot of opportunities for referrals that way. Obviously there are websites that broker those things as well, but those are maybe a little risky. It also depends on what you're looking for. Whether you're looking for an advertising copywriter, you might want a specialty, so you're going to have to look a little more carefully. It also depends whether you think you're going to want an ongoing relationship, in which case maybe getting a referral is going to be a lot better than going to a brokerage site.
I want to drill down a little deeper into the brokerage sites. When you think about Upwork and Fiverr and some of these places, what are the pros and cons of finding a copywriter that way?
Yeah, well, the pro is that you don't have to search very hard. I mean, it's there when you need it. And if you don't need a regular copywriter, if it's just really some one-offs now and then, that's probably your best way. You're not going to want to invest the time and effort to find just that perfect copywriter who's going to get your story and is going to be kind of like an external arm of your business. On the other hand, the flip side of that, so the pros and the cons are basically flip sides, is that you're not going to find someone who can really tell your story over the long term, where you can build a relationship, who after a while, presumably any good copywriter is going to be able to think ahead of you, even in some cases, contact you and say, I see what's happening in your business these days, and you know what you should be preparing for down the road. And it's the same, really the same with graphic designer or whatever. I don't use a lot of graphic design. Very rarely do I need to outsource, so I do go to Fiverr for that. But I would not if I was wanting a constant brand image, week after week. The things I do really are one-off. So I think that's really the main difference. And you might save some money as well going to the brokerage places, but again, you're going to lose some of that consistency. And if you do have someone in the long run, you can probably, if you're giving them significant work, you can probably negotiate down a price so that because they don't have to learn a new client each time. So you can often level the scale between having a dedicated or an ongoing relationship and pulling off of a brokerage site.
What kind of things do you ask, no matter where you found them, to make sure you've got the right copywriter for what you have in mind, for the project that you need?
Well, the first thing is if they can show you samples they've written that are in any way similar, same type of communications. It's not even so much what type of business you are. That's a moot point. And unfortunately, though, that's what a lot of people do look for. Oh, have you ever written in my sector? And while that might be helpful in terms of knowing the terminology or being able to jump right into the subject, the fact is your terminology should be on your website anyway. And between that and Wikipedia, the terminology is all there. But what you want more is to know that they have experience in that kind of copywriting, because advertising copy and marketing copy is very different from news release copy, very different from writing to a regulatory body. Some kinds of writing almost anyone can do, but when you get into something like a news release, we do screenplays too. That's, those kind of things are very specific. Marketing copy is very different than how to and why to, which are often blog and website copy. So yeah, that's the key thing to know. And you want to talk a little with them. Is not what kind of questions as much as what kind of especially if you're looking for the long term, that someone is going to be repeatedly coming back and you're building a relationship. Can I work with this person? Is this person listening to what I'm saying so that they will be able to take my voice and my ideas and the reputation I want to put across? Are they going to be able to translate that into words, or do they already have their own preconceived ideas of what I should be like, what my business should be like, what my customers should be like?
When it comes to deciding or negotiating a price for the jobs or an ongoing relationship price, how do you know what to pay a copywriter for what you're asking them to do?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. You shouldn't be paying $1 million, though. So a very good rule of thumb is, if I was hiring this person full-time, how much would I pay them? Then knock onto that another 20 or 25% in recognition that you're not paying any benefits and that person isn't working all the time. They're spending time getting customers, customer acquisition. So they are, you're hiring the person, but you're also at the same time paying for them to run their business in order to be there for you. So that's a fairly good rule of thumb. I have to say that, we do get people who come and they want to know, how little can I pay? And my answer is always the same. We don't compete on price. We compete on quality. If you want to go and find the cheapest person out there, that's not us. You'll find them. But we'll be happy to correct the mistakes they make when you come back.
So, David, you've hired a copywriter, a freelance copywriter. How do you go about preparing them for the kind of copy that you really need them to create? How do you make sure that they're on the same page as you?
Yeah, exactly, because you haven't brought them up as your sidekick, or they don't have the inside scoop on your company. So you want to make sure, and even at we talked about the interview phase. Even at the interview phase, you want to make sure they're going to look at your website at very least to know what's already there. You might have other materials that are important, things you take to trade shows and whatnot that you can send to them. If you're hiring local, you might bring them into your business if it's brick and mortar, for instance. So you want to get them to know your business, and a sense of not just you telling them this is the reputation I want, but a sense of where you've come from so they can kind of build on it. But you also want to give them the information for the specific project. So there's kind of these two sets of information they need. And so best case scenario for a copywriter is the client is well organized and presents all the information, and whether it's rambling or bullet points, this is all the information you need. Can you organize it for me and make it sound good? And hands off until they see it, and then maybe they want to make some corrections or whatever. But if the client's done a good job of explaining what they want, it should come back from any good copywriter fairly close to what's needed. The worst case scenario is when a client doesn't want to say anything. It's like, I hired you, just do the job. Yeah, but what about, what am I writing about? You're writing about this. Okay, but what about this? And that can be very frustrating, and the client's not going to get what they want because they haven't filled in the detail.
When you're in a business and you know that business inside out, there's a tendency to talk with terms that maybe your audience doesn't understand. This is one of the main reasons you're hiring the copywriter. If you're doing something like software and you have a kind of a shorthand that you use with your programmers that you would never want to put in a press release, how do you make sure that they're going to communicate in the appropriate way?
By nature, when you're talking with some of perhaps your staff or colleagues, you're going to use a lot of jargon. You're going to use a lot of technical language. And sometimes it's important to use that. When you're communicating to certain audiences, if you're vague and you're not specific on technology, you're not going to communicate well. On the other hand, you're communicating with clients and potential clients. They may or may not have a deep level of knowledge on those terms. So those two audiences, you do have to treat differently in one respect. The first audience that knows the technology and knows the terminology, you really need to use it, because not using that will be too vague and you won't get your communications across. The other audience, you have to be very careful to try to avoid most of that technology and explain things in terms they'll understand. Both of those audiences are still human beings reading, and all the words that go around those technical terms still should be the easiest to read as possible. The problem is that most of us, including a lot of writers, including a lot of copywriters, will tend to get more complicated when they write than when they talk. That's a pretty important thing actually to look for in your copywriter. Are they going to be able to write the simplest copy to read?
Well, that's it for another episode of Small Biz in 15. Thanks again to David Leonhardt, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. And please leave a comment and let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future programs. For more small business news and tips, join us at smallbiztrends.com.